not reflect the opinions of Touch Radio or its staff.
Good morning, good morning. As I always say, if you can hear the sultry sounds of my voice, it is a good morning because that means you're still alive. This is Attorney Clinton Paris, and you are live on Intex News Radio, reality radio where everybody can be a star. I am the co-host of Straight Up the Middle. I'm joined in this crusade, this endeavor, this pursuit of truth, justice, and the American way by none other than my cohort, my partner in truth, sweet Pete Edwards. Good morning, Pete. How you feeling?
My brother, I'm doing okay. Interesting week all the way around on some of the observations and court rulings and shenanigans in Congress and the whole bit. But the good thing about it is this week we celebrate tomorrow Mother's Day. And as I told somebody this morning, when you speak of a village, it takes a village to raise a child. There are many mothers in that village. Give you an example: when your mother is working, the elderly lady in the neighborhood that sits in a position to see everything going on, she serves as a representative of your mother till your mother return home safely from work.
Yes.
The mail lady, the school teacher, the kindergarten. You know what I'm saying? So we want to make sure the listening audience know that when we always speak about it takes a village to raise a child, don't leave out those unsung heroes that are mothers that are not identified, of course, as biological mothers, but you know as well as I know, Clint, that had it not been for the prayers of particularly old saintly mothers who the children have moved away, but little boys like you and I kept them alive when they wanted to scold us, when they wanted to teach us something, when they wanted to give us a dessert or something. You feel me on that?
Oh, listen,
Yeah.
listen. I mean, that's one of the most, I think, powerful and brilliant things about the African American community, and that is the net that mothers have placed to catch all of us when we've fallen short and we've made mistakes. They've been there to catch us and lift us. And I can just run off an infinite number of lists of mothers in our community that helped me move along and walk. And I tell you, Pete, every now and again now I get a call from somebody who'll say, I've got an elderly grandmother or somebody that's in a dire situation and we need something done. And I'll tell my staff at the office, hey, clear my calendar, tell everybody else we'll reschedule them. I'm going to meet so-and-so at their house to deal with such and such. And sometimes people, I'm like overwhelmed with the opportunity to give back to some of those people because they did so much for me. I mean, just beyond my ability, even almost appreciate or give back to. So you are absolutely right about the mothers in our community. And I'm just hopeful that continues as we move through more and more generations. Sometimes we don't see.
We definitely need that.
I think sometimes we don't see in these young people the same level of qualities, but that's okay. I think they grow and emerge because I have not forgotten how many people thought I was, completely on the wrong track and would never do anything right. So I'm very, very, let me tell you something also though, Pete, that you mentioned you said the word shenanigans. Many years ago, somebody said that word to me. I may be the only person that embarked on about a 2-3 week research project, drilling down into the use of the word shenanigans, where it comes from, the dispute it arose out of. And all I can remember, one of the things was that they were having this function and shenanigans were a family. And people said, well, we won't have any shenanigans. They were having a few. We won't, like the Hatfields and McCoys. Well, we won't have any shenanigans at this event. And I just think that it's just ironic that you would use that term because I've spent 2 weeks researching that, trying to drill down on that very fact. But you're right about this week. It was a crazy week, so much stuff happening. It's hard to, y'all know if you're like me, Pete, I'm like going through the week going, okay, so what do we focus at? What do we talk about? There's so much stuff. And I sometimes, I know I hog the microphone from you, I want to give you a chance. What's on your mind this morning, right out the box?
Right off the box, I want to say congratulations to Orlando Goods and his second year. He was elected unanimously as chairman of the city council. And
Yes.
I'm reading Facebook and Instagram, and then some people criticizing, well, he's still a policeman and all this other kind of foolishness. Listen, our community has to understand. First of all, they need to understand the power of a pro-mayor form of government. Number one. Now, the city council controls the purse strings. That is true. But you have to have a really dynamic group together to use that power that they have. Otherwise, Tampa is a strong mayor form of government. Thirdly, with Orlando, he's like any other chairman. He could hold up some things for a while and all. But we have a tendency in our community that just drives me crazy. We don't stay consistent on issues like the extremists, the extreme right wing part of the Republican Party, the racists, the Proud Boys, the whole bit. We don't stay on stuff over and over again. We get mad at the Trumpeters, but guess what? The Trumpeters are proving that regardless of what's going on in their personal life, in other words, Dan Gatz or whatever his name is,
Yeah.
they're still paying attention to issues and the whole bit. So we have to stay on things all the time. So I think Orlando's going to do a job, but it's incumbent upon the citizens. If you have ideas, if you have issues, if you have concerns, why wait till the paper brings out an article or something? We have enough retired people, enough smart people that can go down to City Hall, they can read ordinance, they can read zoning things and the whole bit. So we don't have to wait till the last minute when everything is cast and done to say, hey, y'all forgot about it. Hold them all accountable. We got black people living in every district. Now, when Orlando doesn't do like we think he should do, then we ought to hold him accountable. And people have to be reminded, the black community is not monogamous, okay? There's a difference of opinion. So I say congratulations to him on that.
Yeah. That congrats as well, because here's what I think Orlando represents. He represents our next generation of political leadership locally. But you see this across the country. Young, black, ambitious candidates are running for offices. They're winning offices. And when they get in these offices, they're not theoretically waiting their turn to make an impact. They're stepping out front and taking the mantle. I was this morning listening to Diane Hart's show, and I was just amazed at all the stuff she's doing, the stuff that she's partnering with Finchers Driscoll and other people and Darryl Roussan. And all I could think, though, the healthy, vibrant leadership we have in our local community is reflective across the country, all over our America. And I think the world, Pete, the political awareness or consciousness has been raised like it was probably close to the 50s and 60s. We kind of backed off a little bit. Everybody got a little comfortable, I think, in the late 70s, 80s, maybe even some in the 90s. But it's time that we really engage at a high level. I think the Black community has changed drastically from back then. You have so many more educated people, people who are coming into the system in the process, not from ground zero. And you hit it right on the head with a diverse opinion, diverse expectations, and our young new leadership, in which Orlando Goods in our city council, he represents that. He could easily be Tampa's first Black mayor if he plays his cards right. He could very easily be that.
Here's the other
and
thing.
I hope that he continues in the way that he's addressing some of the issues that we have in our community, and make sure that he doesn't get distracted by the naysayers, Pete.
The other thing, you hit it on the head. You hit it on the head with education. But I can tell you this, I tell young people all the time, don't get swept up in the trap game thinking that you got to have a college education to make a difference in our community. Right now, with the resurgence of racism and everything else, we have to have an educated group that includes blue-collar businessmen, kids that are in vocational vocational schools and all. But education, to me, when I look at the Black community, has to deal with street sense, common sense, formal education sense or educational sense and family matters sense. So you got to put those four together,
yeah, yeah,
and make
and
it
I'll
work.
tell you this on that point, like for example, this idea of citizens carte blanche across the board opposing law enforcement, I think is misplaced. If you think our society can function without law enforcement, you are sadly mistaken, and you don't want to live in that America, I don't think. That's one of those things where people have to be, I think, and we hear this definitely from the left, far left, when people yell about defunding police. I think we should be looking at how we police. A lot of things may be done different. I'll tell you, I was exposed to a criminal incident in a school this week. And I was very pleased to see the school, the police, and everybody involved say, no, 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 no. We need to steer this out of a criminal process. And
Well, here's the thing, Clint. One of the things, the biggest mistake we made with the George Floyd incident and everything else, when we allow people who supposedly represent Black Lives Matter use that crazy word of defund the police.
use an administrative process because they, all the police do is come charge or saying they out of that.
Yeah, well, you can't see the budget is there. When we said defund the police, we lost a lot of people that normally would have joined the civil rights movement, like when Martin Luther King, SNCC, CORE, and those folks was in it. So that word right there sent people scared and say, okay. And what it told me as a black man, you know what? The people that are talking about defund the police, they're not interested in the black community. They're interested in extreme socialism or what they can get out of it and put us in the bottom of the barrel again. And I brought that point home to you when we talked about these with mental health, and that you and I see a lot every day in trials a whole bit.
Yes.
And then I further brought it home. If you think it doesn't matter, look what happened this week. It come out in 2 reports. USA News did a extended summary on it. That guess what? The same people that claim that they're being discriminated because they're Asian American, the Chinese, and all like that. There were some of the biggest funders for the Proud Boys. see, that's what we have to deal with. That's what we have to. Hey, listen, you can say, well, Kamala Harris is half Asian American. Look, we know in reality that the Asian Americans are not pro-civil rights when it comes down to black and brown people. They've never been. You can go historically and look at all of the civil rights movement, and you don't see that. So then they come out. I'm just saying.
But think about this. The Asian community during the internment of World War II got kicked in the teeth. And they got put in their place. They were roaming around America, not being treated like black folks, not understanding, though, that you're not white. And during the internment, the whole Asian community got kicked in the teeth. And I think since then, they've just been trying to not get noticed.
They considered themselves, and they still do today, they consider themselves white.
Right.
And so,
but they didn't realize that white folks are treated. But what I'm saying, though, is suddenly it's pushed in their face. It's not that they want to step out, and in fact, it's more non-Asians saying, hey, look, we got a problem in the Asian community. But be that as it may, I mean, it's one of those things, though. So
post-Reconstruction, and they're part of the group, believe it or not, when you look at the donations and what's going on with their police force and all like that, they're part of the group. See, the power struggle now is not black and white. The real power struggle right now is between, do America go back immediately post-Reconstruction, or do America continue on the march of Nazi-style Germany in America? And I'm telling you, by the summertime, I wouldn't be surprised if you see, and I've said it before, that you see church bombings. And what else you're going to see is you're going to see interracial couples and biracial children targeted. It's coming.
I would be surprised at that. I think that hopefully the people that really are trying to make that change see that there's an easier way to do it, and that is by not giving people a rally cry like a George Floyd to get behind. That you do it just subtly with like what's happening with the voting laws, which is something I wanted to kind of bring up. Let me ask you this. I wanted to know, when Georgia changed its voting laws, and I know, and maybe you disagree or not with why they did it, and I don't think they did it to impact voting whatsoever. They did it to appease the Trump base, that they took the stolen election serious. And while we can't undo the last election, we're going to do something about the next election. That's the approach. Reason I think Georgia did what it did. Now, my question for you is, Florida has made some very similar changes when it passed last week. They passed Senate Bill, I think it may have been Senate Bill 90, and DeSantis signed it into law. Very similar restrictions in Florida. But you didn't get the real backlash about racism and so on and so forth in Florida. Why do you think that's the case? Is it because you don't have as many prominent African Americans, or what is it?
Here's the thing. We know that Hispanic and African Americans don't vote in an off-year election. So what's the perfect political timing of it is to bring it out. Give you an example. People raising hell about Georgia requiring an ID. If I'm a brother that doesn't have an ID, and let's say my regular check cashing place that knows me, that normally cashes my check, closes, I'm going to need an ID. So what I told some young people, okay, if they're saying you need an ID and you need an ID for everything anyway, and they're going to pay for it, what we ought to do is get every brother and sister off the street and say, hey, we're going down to register. They're going to pay for ID and all. Now, whether you vote or not is on you, but at least we're forcing the state to pay money to give us a bona fide state ID. So there's nothing wrong with that. Now, when you look at the Florida law that talks about now you got to request a absentee ballot. See, I'm an old school brother that every time you make it hard for me, it's going to make me easy to fight you back. Why? Because I see what's ahead of me, that they don't want me to have continuing absentee ballots coming out and all. So I'm not going to wait till it's time to vote. I'm going to get my forces right now. And since the governor signed the law with all them white people in the background, I'm going to get everybody I can, good white people, good Jews, everybody, and say, okay, let's go down right now and start the process right now. The law is in place. Let's start the process. But in Florida, the black community has a tendency to wait to the last minute, and during an off-year election, we don't vote. But we get mad at the Trumpeteers and all, but they vote.
But stay with me on this real quick. I think at this stage of American society, there are some basic things that you need to function. Basic. And having a ID is one of those things. That's my take. In fact, I don't know many people, and that just may be the circles I move in, that I would say don't have an ID. That's the first thing. But I'm thinking about the person who is at such a low functional level in their life that you don't have an ID, who though is committed to voting. Because I'm thinking, if you don't have an ID, your life has a lot of other pressing issues that you need to deal with that come before voting. Because I know some really smart people. What's that?
That's where the community comes in. Look, I can't make a brother vote. That's on him. But if he says to me, and he goes to my church, or even if I'm the minister, one of my first sermons should be after the governor signed this crazy bill. My brothers and sisters, let us rejoice and join the van, and we're going to take all y'all down there who don't have an ID. We're going to get in the church van that y'all pay for through y'all tithes and offering, and Reverend is going with you without the preacher's collar, and we're going to get everybody an ID. We're going to take pictures of it. We're going to record it. We're going to put out the hassle we might have or might not have with it. That's how you do that. Because in our community, believe it or not, we got some shacksters out there that's going to take advantage of us because of this voting law because they want power and influence, but they're not really interested in bettering the community. I've seen it over and over again in politics. And so that's the thing. And it's the same thing with all these other changes. I'm looking at today, Tim Scott is they about ready to compromise on a police reform bill. But, they're all politicians. They want to make money, and the more they get in power, sometimes the more corrupt they do. So it's the people we have.
Now, go back though. My question though is, why have we not had the backlash and yells and cries how racist this is in Florida, like they had in Georgia? Is it because it didn't work or it's run its course? We're not hearing it in Florida. In Florida, okay, okay.
Cocktails and the shrimp dressed up with a toothpick and all this other foolishness, right? So they were raising money with the lobbyists and the whole bit. After that, what has the Florida black legislators done to reach the mass of people that could support them and be the ground troops for them? Now they can party up something like the white folks. They all party when they get in Tallahassee. They drink freely as they can get from Maker's Mark or Crown Royal Apple. It doesn't matter. All right. So in Florida, we don't have a core base of black leadership to guide the people, the low income people, the what I call the real people, the middle class people, the grandmamas, the young people that's looking for hope and looking for examples of work. So we don't have that piece. And then the third part of it is has to do with coalition building. The new coalition to make civil rights stronger in America and even in Florida is going to have to come from old heads like myself. I'm not afraid to be called old head. I like the idea, actually. They're going to have to get the coalition of young voters. We're going to have to get this new group of high school and college and early 30s group of black and white and Hispanic kids, adults that see things a little different, but they understand the power of freedom and improving race relations and all. We don't have that. We have nobody. Well, the Tampa Bay area is a good example. Uh, Still, at one time we had two black city councilmen, but the other councilmen were not elected. They were appointed through the vacancies or whatever. We still only have one black school board member. We still only have one black county commission. That's incumbent upon us to get coalitions together to make that work. So when you look at Florida, I'm a right wing extremist Republican, white Republican. You think I'm worried about the power of black people and brown people in Florida, especially in an off-year election? I'd be glad to have y'all do nothing.
Yeah, but here's the dynamic of that. I think let's take Trump. No organization, no group, no coalition created Donald Trump. He pulled the coalition together. You need that individual person to emerge as a galvanizing leader to do what you're talking about. If you have that, and I'll go back to some major players in Tampa, like you remember Al Austin, some of those folks. They didn't run for office and hold office, but he absolutely, held a major leadership role in how campaigns and coalitions were put together. I think that's what we're missing. We miss that component, and I don't think that's not intentional, because underlying most political organizational structure and galvanizing, there's an economic component.
You're wrong, Cliff. You're wrong. It is intentional within the black community. Take aside the economic things, You know what's intentional about it? It ticks me off when I see black candidates, black elected officials that don't even come into their neighborhoods until 2 or 3 months before it's time to vote. Now, down Hart is a little different, but I've seen some people I know throughout the Tampa Bay area. Les was different. People didn't like his style, but he made it different. But there are some candidates and some people that look like me and you that when they
Yeah,
come
yeah,
in
but
our neighborhood, they won't come into the deep parts of our neighborhood.
But Les Miller was he was just too smooth. He was too easy on the eye. He dressed too nice. You know, folks just didn't fear or take him serious. And he was able to move legislatively because he's Les Miller. I'm thinking though, I like what we have in front from a political standpoint. I like the people we have elected now. They now need that ally who's not elected, who can push the envelope and galvanize communities around core topics that then leverage the political people who are elected. And I know we got back in the studio this morning. We got Belzer running the boards and Anna, and I knew they were going to hit me with this doggone 5-minute time to break, Pete. Let me throw you a curveball. Today is a great day in Tampa because the Black Heritage Festival is alive and well. Mm-hmm. It is going to go off downtown at Curtis Hickson Park. I think to me, it's one of the highlights of the African American community. I think also if we could generate a way of having a discussion about the state of Tampa as part of the Black Heritage Festival would be a good idea. But I'm always excited when the Black Heritage Festival, and I guess my question, Pete, you gonna make it down there to check out some of the music
and what I'm disappointed in, Cliff, the number of corporations that are using the Tampa Bay area as their headquarters and is not supporting the Tampa Bay Black Heritage, which to a lot of corporations would be on paper should be a safe event to support, right? Give you a good example. I'm looking through their supporters, right? And I'm thinking all these brothers and sisters that's been in the military. USAA has 2 big buildings, 2 big headquarters in Tampa. I don't see their name on there. So what it tells me is that the local Chamber of Commerce and these corporations, you know why they moved to the South, and you know why they actually come to the Tampa Bay area. It's a soft landing spot because people assume that Tampa is liberal and it's diverse in their thought process and all, but they're not, and companies don't have to worry about being called out. So I know we're going to break, but I leave that with our listeners, and we don't call them out. And as I said all the time, the Chamber of Commerce it should be 2 pages of gold sponsors for the Tampa Bay Black Heritage. But companies move to the Tampa Bay area because the black opposition, or let me put it this way, because the black movement is so soft and timid, they don't have to worry about even doing but the very minimum in supporting what they claim a diverse community. That's the way.
Now you can go back. You can go way, way back. I want to say is it Cody Fowler? You can go way back to how Florida handled the civil rights issues and address that. And you know what, Pete? What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about that on the other side of the break, because I had a crazy conversation years ago with Fred Carl, who was a former Supreme Court justice in the state of Florida, who gave me some insight on the approach that was taken back during the 50s and 60s when they were dealing with this issue of how do we handle the civil rights movement as it was sweeping through the South. What it was coming this way. What do you do about it? How do you do it? And of course, also you have to factor in this. Florida missed the Civil War. I mean, and particularly Tampa. We just really hadn't, grown to a level and didn't have the kind of relation and economic stuff going on that we played a major role in either one of those that conflict. So the history behind that little light. And then, of course, the civil rights efforts here were differently handled so that you never got to the level of some of the other states and stuff. So let me do this. Let's go ahead and be polite to our board operators and take our break on time, Pete. And when we come back on the other side, let's touch on what happened with that jobs report. What's going on with Liz Cheney inside these Republican halls of Congress and how they're trying to move her out. And last but not least, is your boy DeSantis setting himself up to run for president or vice president? Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. This is Intex News Radio, reality radio, where everybody can be a star.
Just Talk with Madam CJ. Right here on In Touch Radio. Every Thursday at 7 p.m.
Talk to me, baby.
Trap Talk, y'all. On In Touch Radio.
The storks are bringing me a baby brother. We can do this together.
All right, let's go.
Storks know how to keep kids safe. Do you?
What?
Oh my gosh, you don't know.
I know.
You don't. Oh man, you laugh when you're uncomfortable.
No.
Making sure your child is in the right car seat is one of the steps to safer travel.
I will rock this.
You will rock this.
To know for sure that your child is in the right car seat for their age and size, visit safercar.gov/the right seat.
Cool. Very cool.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
It's important to plan ahead for emergencies, like the storm. When it kicked in, we had a plan.
Separated.
We were able to get in touch with each other in no time.
Idea how to find each other.
The whole experience was fine.
the most frightening 10 hours of my life.
If there's one piece of advice I'd offer other moms out there, it's to stay calm and keep to the plan.
Message.
Some parents plan ahead, some don't. Make sure you know where to find your family in an emergency. Start your plan at ready.gov. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
It may be hard to believe, but people just like you are already saving money. FeedThePig.org makes it easy. Their simple savings plan teaches you how to start saving without going overboard, so you don't need to start foraging wild berries.
I was skeptical, but these are actually pretty good.
You don't need to sell your soul to the devil.
$15 is the best I can do.
You just need FeedThePig.org. Don't get left behind. Get tips and tools at FeedThePig.org. Brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Welcome to Calvin's Barbershop.
You all got to see this.
I don't even want to know what you're looking at on that phone.
Well, you should. I was learning about the dangers of high blood pressure and that we need to get ours checked regularly. High blood pressure can increase the risk of heart attack or stroke, but this text program can help keep it at a healthy range. Just text Barbershop to 97779 to sign up.
I'll get right on it as soon as I'm done with this baby panda video.
Text Barbershop to 97779. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
All right, we're back live with In Touch News Radio, reality radio where everybody could be a star. My name is Clinton Paris. I'm the co-host of Straight Up the Middle, and I'm joined by the world-renowned none other than Sweet Pete Edwards. Good morning again, Pete. How you doing?
My brother, you had me fired up, man. You got me fired up.
I'm sorry, man.
Look, back in the day when I was much more progressive, I probably would have found a couple of trees to burn. But, that's for my listeners. Instagram.
I mentioned the Black Heritage Festival, and for people around the country and around the state who listen to our show, we appreciate you. Let me explain why I'm so thrilled about the Black Heritage Festival. Because the Black Heritage Festival was created by Dr. Sam Wright at the University of South Florida and expanded out into the community. But it really highlights the culture and heritage of African Americans in Tampa, and there are tons of activities and events. This year was, of course, scaled down. So today we're having just the music festival.
It looks good down there too, Clint. It's really pretty. It's gonna be nice and cool this afternoon and everything. And I'll be down there batting and all.
That's going on with our station here, In Touch News Radio, and that is something that's being put together called Fresh Fridays. Fresh Fridays. You may say it's a play on the old First Fridays back in the day. You know, back when you were a young fella, Pete. And on First Friday, we got together and did. But at 5508 out in the courtyard, In Touch News, led by Daryl and Tammy Johnson, is putting on something called Fresh Fridays. They're going to have a slate of dates from May 14th through June 11th. May 28th, June 25th, July 9th, August 6th, July 23rd, August 12th. Just a bunch of Fridays encouraging people to come out, have some grown folks fun, mix, mingle. You know, we all got our vaccines, and the CDC says we can gather in a little bit larger groups out in public. And also they're going to have karaoke with Cass, which I know is going to be crazy. So one of the things that we can look forward to. And I encourage everybody to go to the In Touch News page, intouchnews.com, and take a look at all the stuff that's happening. But I want you to stay tuned and watch for more stuff on social media and print regarding Fresh Friday. All right, Pete, let's get back to this. So I threw a lot of stuff out there at the break. So I'm going to just go down my list, and you can educate the world
Give you quick answers.
Go ahead. No, I want the
Well, I
full
mean,
answer.
so we can. I know we got a good list, but I can give you my straight up answer.
Okay, good enough. Well, let's start. The first one I want to talk about is this. Let's talk about this jobs report. Only 266 jobs. Companies are saying we can't find workers. People won't come to work. Is that a reflection of people got too much to stay at home in that stimulus bill, or something else afoot with that low jobs report, Pete?
It's fake when they talk about people making more money staying home. No, a lot of people want to make sure they're healthy. A lot of young people want to work, but they're not reaching out to them to work. A lot of seniors want to work, but we know if we be honest with ourselves, if you try to get a job over 50 years old now, outside of being a greeter at Walmart or something like that, they don't want to hire. But it serves the purpose of extremists, right-wing extremists, to say, hey, and when they talking about people don't want to work, you know who they're talking about? Low-income people, black and brown people. That's that quiet stigma that they have behind it.
Well, let me say this,
I'm
Pete.
just saying.
When Trump was in office, I took the reports, jobs report number, to be what the numbers say they are. Now we can analyze what they are, but 266 new jobs is a low number, and something needs to be done. Now, here's what I think. I think that you have a lot of students who are at home. You have a lot of people who've been able to get by on one income, and they've realized, being in this rat race and working myself to death just to have, that extra third car, not 2 cars, but 3 cars. I think a lot of people are rethinking whether they want to live that way.
Well, it's a mental health issue.
Yeah, I think there's a new thing. I'm just going to talk about myself. Years ago, my wife left the workforce to raise our kids. And she became, she went to work at my law firm, which gave a lot more flexibility. Now, that changes, our retirement dates and a bunch of other stuff and what size things we can do. But we made a choice to do that. It's been great for our family. We're much happier people. And I think a lot of people have realized there's a lot more to live than that, that job. And so I think that's underneath.
True too, but they're cheap. They're gonna be cheap. When you look at the rates and what they're paying, for an example, people that live in affordable housing with tax credits, one of the things that's happening with that is they do regional surveys of rates and all. So even if you're in affordable housing, you may go up $70 more a month if that survey comes back that says, hey, this is the normal income area and all for that area, so we got to go up $70 more a month on your affordable housing thing. It's a ripoff to say that people don't want to work. If they were interested, see, my thing is that with the work thing, the workforce could be more diverse, but you got a lot of companies. Understand this, Cliff. You got a lot of companies that have an artificial quota where they really don't want too many black and brown people to work. I'm just going to put it out there like that.
I'm going to leave that alone. I don't have the empirical information
I
to
stand
back
by
that.
that.
I'm going to say, listen, we need to fight to break down barriers, and we need to fight to make sure people have opportunity where they can. And I would say this, being in business for me is about making money. And that will trump a lot of other stuff. All right, so let's jump on to the next little topic I have. And that is what is happening with your folks in the Republican Party, Pete, and this issue with Liz Cheney. It's turned out to be just a complete slow walking, melee. They're trashing and trampling over Liz Cheney. And I thought she called it right. I like to say that when we elect people, we want them to do the job that we elected them to do, to voice their opinion. But where is the rationale and what's happening within the Republican Party and Liz Cheney being removed from her chairmanship.
Very conservative. For the people that run in the Republican Party now, she's not racist enough. Simple answer. She's not
really.
Racist
You think
enough.
I don't? You
She's
think it's,
not
it's very,
racist enough. Trust me, she's not racist enough, and she doesn't come
well, I
out
don't
with
know.
it.
Here's what I thought. I thought she was not beholden to Trump enough and willing to kowtow to appease the base so that they would feel good about themselves. Because we both know you can't win without a broad appeal. You can win a primary, but you're going to struggle in the general. And I'm just surprised that would be the tack at the front of the party that it would take, because the Democrats, you may see some very liberal legislation, but you're not seeing very radical liberals out front driving the agenda. And that's what I think what's happening on the Republican side is they're letting really radical right-wing folks drive the agenda more so than they are the moderates. And Liz Cheney is
conservative now, have switched their label to non MPA or whatever they call it, because they understand this Trump movement is right-wing extremist white supremacy. That's it. And if you look at the women, look at the lady that's supposed to take Liz Cheney place. They went back in K-Files and showed how she was anti-Trump and all like that. But now she's switched. Why? Because it's about money. It's about the separation of bringing white supremacists back, and she wants to ride that coattail so she can make more money. And also Liz Cheney, as conservative as she is, don't fit that. So the white women that this extreme part of the Republican Party is recruiting are basically white women who, let's say they're descendants of the daughters of the American Revolution or the daughters of the Confederate Army. Okay, so their attitude is, hey, white supremacy. So that's the bottom line there. We don't like to talk about it like that, but that's exactly what it is.
You know, you mentioned a key point. I always thought I always thought politicians were driven by polls. That before they, walked outside to comment on the weather, they referred to a poll to make sure they got it in line with their constituents. And so I think behind all that you're seeing in the Republican Party, they've got a backup for that. And it's in their polling data. It's in their numbers. It's in the stuff that they rely on to find their position. And so I think the reason that we are seeing this is the Republican base, the active base or the vocal base or the participating base that's what they want to have done. My question though is, why would it play out why would the publicity of it is almost as detrimental as the decision? This needed to be handled in a much more delicate way.
Playing out because even within the Republican Party, a lot of people don't want to vote off the election. You remember, they're looking at 2022. And if I'm in that extremist group, then by any means necessary, I'm going to take out all the tools that make me more powerful with my smaller group and all. And then what they got to see, if they're doing really research, they got to know, let's say by 2028, the younger kids that are really going to be into the voting mood and all like that, they're going to change all that out. So this is a last stance, so to speak. But what's going to happen to America in the meantime, we're either going to be in a race war or things are going to get so extreme that we'll also be in a war with Russia or somebody. And then if people don't think that this country is dying on the vine because of the foolishness of the white supremacy and all, they got another thing coming. But let me remind my liberal friends too. If you think that we're going to survive on this extreme, see, as a black person, when I see too many white people that claim they're all for us and all like that, and they hijack our movements, I don't trust them. I'm just going to be straight up. I don't trust them because guess what? I don't see them in our neighborhood either, except for a photo op but they run for shows that put them on the spot answering questions. So I don't trust them. I mean, a lot of black people like our Congressman, Kathy Castor, but I tell you what, she has never went anywhere to do interviews, or she's never went into community meetings where the black community would really have a chance to call her out on issues. She avoids that. Now, she'll go to Open Cafe and some other spots and with the fancy black people and all like that, but she's never showed up anywhere without a camera and all to make herself look good. A real elected official learns how to go down into the neighborhood with just a couple of people, where the guys just sitting on the blocks or the sisters got a storefront church and stop in. So that's for my liberal friends. How about that?
Listen, I've always thought, listen, I've always thought that for the length of time she's been in Congress, that I would expect a little bit more presence from her, even on the national scene. I mean, you've got the folks that come into Congress, and they're hitting it. They're hitting it hard. And I know she feels she's in a comfortable, safe district, you know. But there are a lot of people that felt they were comfortable until somebody showed up running against them, and they weren't prepared for you know, dealing with that issue in a way that, you know, will protect themselves. I just think that I'm because here's my theory is, I'm really worried about the Republican Party weakening itself where it can't win on the general elections. I really feel, and in doing so, I think it opens the door for the Democrats to be a little bit more too reckless, to go too far, to disregard too many things in that process. I don't like, for example, I don't think the Democrats are taking the border situation as serious as they should. I think it should be a seriously taken issue in a public way. Well, they're playing it a little differently. They're playing it, you know, we're going to treat this like it's a, you know, international issue. We're going to go down to the triangle and work our way back up, as opposed to working from the border down. I think but without Republican strength in front of them on that issue, they can get away with that, you know, and I just think that to me worries me.
You're right, but keep in mind, people who have power that has no real relationship after the lights and the media is gone from the community. It's not about the community with them. It's about the amount of power and wealth and influence they can accumulate in a short time, whether they black, white, Hispanic, Jewish, Indian, or whatever. That's the essence of arrogant power. People who are elected that truly, I give you one example and then I'm gonna get off this subject. Kathy Castor's seat should have been Les Miller's seat, but you know,
absolutely,
you know what happened? The so-called
he worked with her mom.
The so-called Tampa liberals joined in together and got Kathy and cut Les right on out. And one of the main backers of Kathy Castor, believe it or not, was Alex Sink, who Les went overboard to help her husband, Bill McBride, try to become governor. And what do he get for that?
Yeah.
McBride
I agree with you.
sponsors a big fundraiser for Kathy Castor out on the lake. So see, when sisters, when people tell me we got these so-called liberal congressmen like Kathy Castor and all, I tell brothers, look, don't trust but verify, because she's not what you think she are, is representing the true blood of the black and brown community. See, you know, can only fake it so long.
You know, well, people, you know, I can appreciate, you know, having a broad constituency and some of that kind of stuff, and you know, it's unfortunate that it ends up being that's the way you survive and keep getting elected and so on. All right, I got to save a little bit of time for my last issue, which I know you're excited to talk about, and that is your governor, Ron DeSantis. This guy seems to not be missing any chance he can to increase and raise his profile. Everything is a splish splash, photo op, announcement, projection. is he that he's concerned about competition for governor, or is he setting himself up for a run for president or vice president? What's your take on it?
I don't blame him. I don't blame him. I would take the same stance as he take. Listen, if you notice, and I predict this, whoever runs against him in 2022 will lose by at least 8 percentage points.
Wait a minute. Hold on.
8. Write it down. 8.
Hold on. You don't think Charlie Crist can beat him?
No, nobody from the Democratic side is going to beat him.
Nikki Freed? You don't think Nikki Freed?
Nobody from the Democratic side is going to beat him.
All right, I'm making my note. I'm making my notes here.
Again, Clint. At least he will win at least between 7 to 8 percentage points. And here's why: it's an off-year election. You look at outside a couple of bills that went through Tallahassee with the Black Legislative Caucus raised sand or whatever. Where is the coalition that needed to defeat him? You look at the pictures he's taken. He's smart enough. Every bill he signed, voters, whatever he signed, even giving $1,000 to first responders, the whole bit. All of the pictures that I've seen might have one white woman, but everybody else has been a white male. So he's playing up to the voters that's going to consistently vote and like his attitude. And until we get a new coalition of voters, because the black voters can't do it alone, and until we bring back black voters who left the Republican Party and went independent, or left the Democratic Party and went independent, with some substantial policy and ideas, he's going to win at least by 7 points. I mean, it's set up for him, and it's, keep in mind, a place like the Villages, they got some black people living there. They even got so-called previous Northern liberals who got big benefits from labor and the whole bit up north. When they moved to the villages around Ocala and Leesburg and all that foolishness, probably 3/4 of the villages are right-wing extremists. If they weren't, people wouldn't go there. So DeSantis, yeah, he should probably win by at least 7 points. 4 of the points is going to happen, percentage points going to happen because black people not going to vote. I'm just keeping it real, bro.
I think the key vote is, I think that the struggle vote for him is going to be, I think, in Hispanic community. And the key is going to be for him, well, if he runs, if he will run, I'm pretty certain of that, will be the Trump base getting out. Or how people can come in Florida, maybe a state based. Gillum was able to got real close, but for a few things, it comes down to it, and that's why laws and stuff that people really associate with restriction on the black vote. They don't look at the restriction that has on, I think, on the Hispanics as well, who might be affected by these same rules. But I think the vote that's going to swing it is going to be the Hispanic vote. All right, Pete, I got a message from Anna. She said you have 2 minutes to tell her what she needs to be thinking about as we go into the next week.
As we go into next week, understand about the vote. There's a difference between Hispanic voters that are white Hispanics versus black Hispanics. So as we go into next week, we need to talk about what's the results of whether the school system got their budget act together or not. And number two, as we get into the summer, school will be out in less than 3 weeks. I like to have a healthy discussion on how much hell is going to be raised or how much hell is not going to be raised with our kids this summer. Because we got to figure out.
You mean like catching up from the year that they had, or you think that's going to be the big focus over the summer? It should be.
Oh, I think violence among young people are going to go up this summer.
Really?
Because it's fashionable.
Wow. I mean, yeah. Well, I would hope not. I would like to think that we're ready, and I think that there are going to be a lot of organization people driving to get our kids caught up. In fact, I want to promote that there's going to be a school board early learning book drive on May 22nd out at Sly Middle School to give away books, to try to make sure kids have something to read and focus on, so that they don't engage in that kind of stuff over the summer. But I'm hopeful that people embrace the opportunity we have as we come out of this COVID situation, Pete, that they will look to renew their commitment to being better people, better husbands, wives, daughters, sons, and all the other things that we can do. COVID has given us a chance, I think, to do some reflection, Pete. And I hope people take advantage of that.
What I'm hearing on the street, it's going to be fashionable to raise hell. If you don't believe it, look at some of the video from the fair.
Yeah.
Just deliberately continue to go out there and fight just to look
fashionable.
fashionable.
All right, everybody, I want to appreciate you for tuning in this week to Straight Up the Middle. I want to encourage everybody to stick around as we close out this show for The Sole Purpose, which comes on right after we finish up. Pete, thanks very much for being here. Bezel, Anna, appreciate you all as always for keeping things straight. This has been In Touch News Radio, reality radio, where everybody can be a star. We'll see you back here next week. Everybody be safe. Thank you.